Let's now look at how to implement Azure File Sync and set up file synchronization. There are several high-level steps for configuring Azure File Sync as shown in this diagram. First, you need to deploy the storage sync service. The storage sync service can be deployed from the Azure portal. You will need to provide name, subscription, resource group, and a location. Next, you need to prepare Windows Server to use with Azure File Sync. For each server that you intend to use with Azure File Sync, including server nodes in the failover cluster, you will need to configure the server. Preparation steps include temporarily disabling Internet Explorer Enhanced Security and ensuring you have the latest PowerShell version installed. Then you install the Azure File Sync agent. The agent is a downloadable package that enables Windows Server to be synced with an Azure file share. The Azure File Sync agent installation package should install relatively quickly. We recommend that you keep the default installation path and that you enable Microsoft Update to keep the Azure File Sync agent up to date. The final step is to register Windows Server with the Storage Sync service. Registering Windows Server with Storage Sync service establishes a trust relationship between your server or cluster and the Storage Sync service. Registration requires your subscription ID, resource group, and the Storage Sync service that you need to create in step 1. Remember that a server or a cluster can be registered with only one Storage Sync service at a time. In this demo, we will look at how to use the Azure portal to set up file synchronization. This step can be completed after you have configured Azure File Sync that we discussed in the previous 4 steps. For this demo, I have already deployed the Storage Sync service, installed the agent on my Windows Server, and then registered it with the Sync service in Azure. Next, we need to create a sync group. In the Azure portal, select the sync group from the Storage Sync service overview page. Click on Sync Group, and then give the sync group a descriptive name. I will use LinkedIn Sync Group 1 in this demo. Choose your subscription, then select the storage account and the name of the Azure file share you created, and select Create. If you select your sync group, you can see that you now have one cloud endpoint. Next, we need to add a server endpoint. A server endpoint represents a specific location on a registered server. For example, a folder on a server volume. So select the newly created sync group and then select Add Server Endpoint. On the server endpoint pane, you need to enter the following information to create a server endpoint: the registered server, the name of the server you created. I will use WS2016 in this demo. The path is the Windows Server path to the drive you created. I will use LinkedIn Learning in this demo. I will leave cloud tiering disabled here, and finally click Create. Now the synchronization engine kicks in. If I browse to my Azure file share, we can see that all my files are now synced across my Azure file share and Windows Server. For a more thorough look at planning for an Azure File Sync deployment, you can check out Plan for Azure File Sync Deployment Guide.